Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Givanadari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Givanadari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopi Jana Vallabha Givanadari Jaya Gopi Jana Vallabha Givanadari Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Yasodanandana Braja Jana Ranjana Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jamuna Tira Vanachari Jaya Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Hare Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama Hare Rama 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 Hare 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 Krishna Vishakajaya Radhesham. Lalita Vishakajaya Radhesham. Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Jaya Prabhupada, Śrīla Prabhupada. Oh, Premanandi, Hari Hari Bo. Jayam Viṣṇu Paramahansa Parabhakacharya Āsthitaḥ Satashi Shriman, His Divine Loving Grace A.C. Bhakti-Vedanta Gosvāmī Śrīla Prabhupada Ki. Jayam Viṣṇu Paramahansa Parabhakacharya Āsthitaḥ Satashi Shriman, His Divine Loving Grace Śrīla Bhakti-Siddhanta Saraswati Gosvāmī Śrīla Prabhupada Ki. Ananda Koi Vaishnavinda Ki, Namacharya Haridas Thakur Ki, Brahmshika Shri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Shri Gadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Ki, Shri Radha Kṛṣṇa Gopinath Samakunda Radha Kunda Girdi Govardhan Ki, Vrindavan Dham Ki, Mayapur Dham Ki, Jagannath Pur Dham Ki, Samaveda Bhaktavinda Ki. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Shri Guru and Gauranga, glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Nama Om Vishnu-padaya Kṛṣṇa Vasudaya Bhutale Śrīmati Bhakti-vedanta Swami Nityanami Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauranga Bhajani Namaste Synonyms. So this evening, we are studying the 6th chapter, Dana Yoga, verse 31. One sec. Sarva-bhūta-sthitaṁ bhajanti ekatvam āsthitaḥ sarvatā vartamāno sa yogī mayi vartate sarva-bhūta-sthitaṁ yomam bhajanti ekatvam āsthitaḥ sarvatā vartamāno sa yogī mayi vartate sarva-bhūta-sthitaṁ yomam bhajati ekatvam āsthitaḥ sarvatā vartamāno sa yogī mayi vartate. Please chant. Sarva-bhūta-sthitaṁ yomam bhajati ekatvam āsthitaḥ sarvatā vartamāno sa yogī mayi vartate sarva-bhūta-sthitaṁ yomam bhajanti ekatvam āsthitaḥ sarva-bhūta sa yogī mayi vartate sarva-bhūta-sthitaṁ yomam ekatvam āsthitaḥ sarva-bhūta-sthitaṁ yomam sarvatā vartamānopi sa yogī mayi vartate. Vaishnavis, sarva-bhūta-sthitaṁ yomam bhajati sarvatā vartamānopi sa yogī mayi vartate. Sarva-bhūta-sthitaṁ, situated in everyone's heart. Yaha, he who, mam, me, bhajati, serves in devotional service. Ekatvam, in oneness. Āsthitaḥ, situated. Sarvathā, in all respects. Vartamānaḥ, being situated. Api, in spite of. Sā, he, yogī, the transcendentalist. Mayi, in me. Vartate, remains. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, Śrīla Prabhupada. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful service of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. Please repeat. Such a yogi who engages in the worshipful services of the Supersoul, knowing that I and the Supersoul are one, remains always in me in all circumstances. A yogi who is practicing meditation on the Supersoul sees within himself the plenary portion of Kṛṣṇa as Viṣṇu, with 4 hands holding conchshell, wheel, club, and lotus flower. The yogi should know that Viṣṇu is not different from Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa in this form of Supersoul is situated in everyone's heart. Furthermore, there's no difference between the innumerable Supersouls present in the innumerable hearts of living entities, nor is there a difference between a Kṛṣṇa conscious person always engaged in the transcendental loving service of Kṛṣṇa and a perfect yogi engaged in meditation on the Supersoul. The yogi in Kṛṣṇa consciousness, even though he may be engaged in various activities while in material existence, remains always situated in Kṛṣṇa. This is confirmed in the Bhakti-rasāmṛta-sindhu 1.2.187 of Śrīla Rūpa Gosvāmī. Nikhilastapi avastastu jīvan-muktaḥ sa uchate. A devotee of the Lord always acting in Kṛṣṇa consciousness is automatically liberated. In the Nārada Pañcarātra, this is confirmed in this way. Dikkaladi anapapakshine Viṣṇe Ksheto vidhayacha tanmayo bhavati shri pram jivo bhavani yojat. By concentrating one's attention on the transcendental form of Kṛṣṇa, who is all-pervading and beyond time and space, one becomes absorbed in thinking of Kṛṣṇa and then attains the happy state of transcendental association with him. Kṛṣṇa consciousness is the highest stage of trance in yoga practice. This very understanding that Kṛṣṇa is present as Paramatma in everyone's heart makes the yogi faultless. The Vedas, Gopal Tapani Upanishad 1:21, confirms this inconceivable potency of the Lord as follows. Ekopi san bahuda yovabhati. Although the Lord is one, he is present in innumerable hearts as many. Similarly, in the Smriti Shastra, it is said, Eka eva paro Viṣṇu, sarva-vyapi na samshayah, ashrayad rūpam ekam cha suryavat bahu eyate. Viṣṇu is one, and yet he is certainly all-pervading. By his inconceivable potency, in spite of his one form, he is present everywhere as the sun appears in many places at once. Om Gana Timirandasya Jananjana Salakaya Chaksun Militanyena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobhistam Sapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadanmayam Dadanti Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Yuta Barakamalam Shri Guru Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunatam Vitam Tam Sajivam Sadvaitam Sadvadhutam Parijana Sahitam Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padam Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakapidamscha He Kṛṣṇa Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagapate Gopisa Gopika Kanta Radhakanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurange Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vishabhanu Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhu Bhayevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Shri Kṛṣṇa Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shivasadi Gaur Bhaktavinda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Thank you all for coming this evening to the beautiful descriptions of the Srimad Bhagavad Gita spoken by the Supreme Lord himself for the benefit of all of us. So Kṛṣṇa in this chapter is explaining Dana Yoga to Arjuna. And it's interesting that there are different processes of to get to Kṛṣṇa. Dana Yoga is a bona fide process. What interesting enough is that in all the processes, still the mind needs to be controlled. And it's in Western philosophies, they don't have this concept at all. They confuse the mind with the soul and the self. And that's a very, very unfortunate because it defeats the whole process of spirituality. The purpose of yoga system is to control the mind and draw it away from the attachments to these sense objects in the material world. In the 6th verse of this chapter, Kṛṣṇa says, "For he who has controlled the mind will be the best of friends. And for he who has failed to do so, the mind will remain the greatest enemy." Now, we can imagine if we would never choose to live with an enemy would just cause us so much difficulty and cause us so much unhappiness. But unfortunately, we all have an enemy within called the mind. In the American Indian philosophy, they talk about that within each person are two dogs, or wolves. They say a good one and a bad one. And they say, well, you need to control control the situation by not feeding the bad wolf. And that would be giving the bad wolf things to make it stronger. And actually, Krishna consciousness, we have a bit of that also, because we follow the 4 regulative principles. And this helps with subduing the mind. But of course, most importantly, is we chant the Maha Mantra. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. And so in this next verse, not the next one here, the 7th one in this chapter, for one who has conquered the mind, the Supersoul is already reached, for he has attained tranquility. Such a man, happiness and distress, heat and cold, honor and dishonor are all the same. In this purport, Śrīla Prabhupada points out that every living entity is intended to abide by the dictation of the Supreme Lord, who is seated in everyone's heart. If we don't control the mind, we cannot hear the voice of the Supreme Lord because that mind is too loud. The mind leads us to misery and illusory energy. One becomes entangled in material activities. If the mind is contaminated, it's going to be very confused. So this is our dilemma. It describes that our mind is a reservoir for all material desires. So all the senses are connected with the mind, giving their desires, and the mind is a reservoir of material desires. In the mind, there are so many desires that we all have to deal with. And in controlling these desires is essential if one is serious about spiritual life. But it can't be artificial. If it's artificial, then we can't do it for very long. The mind is like a little child, it's been described. And I would say like a toddler. I don't know if any of you have had to watch a toddler, but they just go, and sometimes very fast in different directions, whichever they want. They see a shiny object, they'll pick it up and put it in their mouth, no matter what it is. Or they'll run to the edge of a cliff. They just have no common sense about them. The mind is like that. But if you try to take that child and sit him down in a chair and say, be quiet now, just sit down, you will have a big temper tantrum in your hands. So we have to treat it with respect, and maybe even with some bribes. If you come to the temple now, then we will have prasadam afterwards. So in this way, we are giving the mind a higher taste. It's getting a higher taste for something much better for it. See, this mind, the part of the problem is that this mind has been traveling with us, along with the false ego and the intelligence, since time immemorial. So we've been in a bear body, a dog body, a frog body, all these different bodies. And in each body, the mind is telling us, oh, what a great body this is. Let me just enjoy here. And let's try all these different ways to enjoy. So this reservoir of enjoyment is constantly sending out desires. That we've been carrying this around since time immemorial. Remember the story of Lord Indra? Poor Lord Indra, he gets himself into so much trouble. That's another class in itself. We could talk about how he has so much power, he has so much wealth, he has so much fame, and all this is troublesome for him. This is why devotees take to a simple life, because they don't want the troubles of all of pride and anger and hate, and all this comes when you have a lot to worry about. So Indra, he got himself cursed, and he was sent to the earth planet in a pig body. Now, we of all know what pig bodies are like. We see them, we go the other way. But Lord Brahma, he was seeing a problem in the heavens, is that they needed some management from Lord Indra. And so he came down to earth. He came down to earth to tell Lord Indra, we need you back on the heavenly planets. Come on now, your curse's time is up. You can come now to the heavenly planets. And Indra's like, what? I'm not leaving here. This is the best life ever. Look at my beautiful fat she-pig. Look at all my little piglets running around in the mud. And he's just so attached to this condition. Well, you know, that's how our condition looks to those in the heavenly planet. Because we have very short lives. And we have really miserable material bodies. And we don't have really very much happiness here. We have both, sukha dukkha, right? We have happiness and distress. But it's conducive for spiritual life. That's why we're here, right? So, anyway, a person who is not, and this is from the second chapter that Kṛṣṇa gives this example, that a person who is not disturbed by the incessant flow of desires that enter in like rivers into the ocean, which is ever being filled but always still, can alone achieve peace, and not the man who strives to satisfy such desires. It's in that trying to satisfy these desires that there's trouble. That's where the trouble begins. Because when we try to satisfy the desires, we get more attached to the material world. We get more entangled. And then we have to accept the karma that comes with that enjoyment. So it's very entangling to get caught up in trying to satisfy material desires. Devotees, they get thoughts of these desires, they come. But because their minds are absorbed in the higher consciousness, they're absorbed in their devotional service, they're absorbed in hearing and chanting, that these desires mean nothing to them. And so they just flow by like the river. And this is a famous example that Śrīla Prabhupada gives. He's even put it on the front of the Bhakti Godhead, is that where there's Kṛṣṇa, there's no maya. Where there's sun, there's no darkness. It's so nice. Right now it's getting light, much later. So in the morning when we start walking and chanting our japa, it's so dark. But as we chant, it's like in our hearts, how the more purified our hearts become, the more that our awareness of Kṛṣṇa is, how much more it is present. We see Kṛṣṇa more and more and more. Just like when the sun comes up, we can start to see, oh, it's not just a black, dark building. There's trees with leaves and flowers. So we can see so much more of Kṛṣṇa as this purification process takes hold. So when one comes to Kṛṣṇa consciousness, they can immediately taste this higher taste. They can immediately appreciate it. And Prabhupada said there's no artificial imposition on the mind. Nothing artificial about this process. And he said the proof is in the children. In the when Prabhupada, before the Srimad Bhagavatam class and before and after the Bhagavatam class, we would have a kirtan. And there was a wide row in front of the Vyasa-san that went all the way back to the deities. And the children would all come into this row and dance ecstatically. And as they danced, Prabhupada would encourage them. And sometimes they would really get going. And so naturally, it was coming from their hearts. There was no artificial imposition. There was nobody pushing them, dance, dance, dance. They were just completely absorbed in ecstasy from being in the presence of a personality like Śrīla Prabhupada. Actually, he did that to the adults too. He would turn to one side of the room and he'd be playing his gong, and he'd start just moving his head, and everybody would start jumping up as high as they could. Then he would turn to the other side, and again, everyone is jumping up as high as they can. So where there's Kṛṣṇa, there is no darkness. And then that's where it becomes our responsibility. Are we filling our lives with Kṛṣṇa? At first, we may seem artificial because we're contaminated. Remember that mind and false ego has been coming with us since time immemorial. So at first it is awkward, it's difficult, and it's challenging. But after time, it becomes the only thing we want to do. And so he also says, of all the yogis, the one with great faith, who always abides in me, thinks of me within himself, and renders transcendental loving service to me, he is the most intimately united with me in yoga and is the highest of all. That is my opinion. That's from later on in this chapter, verse 47. So Kṛṣṇa is saying a devotee who always takes shelter of him, depends on him in all circumstances, is most high. Kṛṣṇa recognizes him to be the greatest yogi. The difference between the bhakti yogi and the yogi, the Ashtanga yogi, is that the devotee is depending on Kṛṣṇa in every way. The Ashtanga yoga starts off depending on his own abilities to concentrate and his own discipline to meditate. In chapter 18, Kṛṣṇa says, in all activities, just depend on me and work always under my protection. In such devotional service, be fully conscious of me. If you become conscious of me, you will pass over all the obstacles of conditioned life by my grace. If, however, you do not work in such consciousness, but act through false ego, not hearing me, you will be lost. Kṛṣṇa is saying, you're doing. Kṛṣṇa is the supreme controller. Nothing happens without his sanction. So everyone should depend on Kṛṣṇa. He has a particular desire. He has a particular plan. And that's why we surrender to him, to become a part of that plan. A devotee doesn't think of himself. He thinks of himself as an instrument for Kṛṣṇa. And Śrīla Prabhupada perfectly exemplified this in a poem he wrote in the Boston harbor when he landed in the U.S. He wanted to be an instrument for Kṛṣṇa. He said, I don't know why you brought me to such a terrible place. Prabhupada had gotten off the boat. He wandered around Boston Harbor with the captain, and he began to see just how fallen the West was. Everything was centered around the four regular principles: meat eating, intoxication, sex life, gambling. All of it was just magnified in every place. And that was all people were thinking about and focusing on. And so Prabhupada says, I don't know why you brought me here. He's saying this in such humility, like, who am I? He says, but whatever you want, my Lord, just make me dance, make me dance, make me dance as you like. So that is the mentality of a devotee. He wants his devotees to be recognized. He wants his devotees to be glorified and honored. And when the Lord manifested his universal form to Arjuna, Arjuna saw that, yes, everybody on the battlefield was devoured. They were finished. So he knew that he wasn't killing anyone. He was just doing whatever Kṛṣṇa wanted, performing some actions for Kṛṣṇa. But Kṛṣṇa was the actual controller. And it's so in our life too, that every action is due to the mercy of Kṛṣṇa. And if we don't think of that and remember that, then it's going to be a problem. I once met this pujari, and she was quite distraught because she told me, she says, I was once such a great pujari. I would get up every morning at 2 a.m. and chant my rounds. And then I would bathe and dress the deities. And then I would make their morning breakfast, and I would offer that, and then I would make Raj Bhog. And then one day, I couldn't get up anymore. The problem was she forgot. She forgot that it wasn't her ability that was making this happen. It was Krishna's mercy. And so it's for all of us. It's Krishna's mercy that we're here and that we're allowed to do some service. And that service is so cherishable. So Arjuna fought valiantly and depended on Kṛṣṇa completely. And if we always work in that way, then the false ego, which has also been traveling with us since time immemorial, will not get in the way. So when we talk about this Ashtanga yoga, and later on Kṛṣṇa is going to reject the Ashtanga yoga system, it's actually for a previous time. Because in this age, we can't go sit in a secluded place by ourselves and shut our eyes halfway, meditate on the tip of our nose, drowning out all the sense distractions for 1,000 years. We can't even do it for 100 years. We can't do it for a month. We can't do it for a day. We can't even do it for an hour. And I highly doubt that we could do it for 5 minutes. But they propagate these types of meditations in some parts that are completely absurd. But this age is very difficult. We're short-lived. We're quarrelsome, we're lazy, misguided, unlucky, and always, always agitated. This is a symptom of the age of Kali. It's very difficult. But Śrīla Prabhupada has given this most wonderful process of chanting Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Now Prabhupada spoke on this verse in 69 in Los Angeles. And so I thought I'd read a little bit from his lecture. The devotees are going outside to preach Krishna consciousness. Why? They see Krishna in all beings. How? Because they see all beings as part and parcels of Krishna. They are forgetful of Krishna, and so let us awaken them to Krishna consciousness. Sometimes there are missionary activities to give education to the uneducated community. Why? Because they see that they are also human beings, and so they should be educated. They should understand the value of life. That is their sympathy. Here is the same thing, that everyone should know that he's part and parcel of Krishna. Forgetting this consciousness, he suffers. That is to see Krishna in everything. And there's so many descriptions of where to see Krishna. Right? We taste Krishna in water. We can see Krishna in the sun. We can see Krishna the moon is his other eye. The mountains are his bones. And in this way, we can think of Krishna constantly. You should have sympathy for every living being because they are part and parcel of Krishna. Why are we welcoming these children? Because they are part and parcel of Krishna. You're giving them the chance to, as much as possible, take part in the kirtan and taste the prasadam. The children who come and imitate us like this, don't think that it is going in vain. Something done in Krishna consciousness, knowingly or unknowingly, will have its effect. These children who are bowing down or trying to vibrate Kṛṣṇa, or who are clapping. These things are accumulating in the bank account of Kṛṣṇa consciousness. You may know it or not know it. It doesn't matter. Because Kṛṣṇa is there, it is so nice. Therefore, every living being should be given a chance. These boys are inviting outsiders, come on, to this love feast. What is the idea? The idea is to let them come to take a little prasad, and it will act someday in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. So the true yogi observes me in all beings and also sees every being in me. How in me? Because everything that you see is Kṛṣṇa. You are sitting on this floor, and so you are sitting on Kṛṣṇa. You are sitting on this carpet, and so you are sitting on Kṛṣṇa. You should know this. How is this carpet Kṛṣṇa? Because the carpet is made of Kṛṣṇa's energies. So long as we are in the material world, we are sitting on the material energy, and so we are sitting on Kṛṣṇa, because this energy is not separate from him. It is just like this flame has heat and illumination. These are two energies. The heat is not separate from the fire, and the illumination is not separate from the fire. Therefore, in one sense, the heat is also fire, and the illumination is also fire. Similarly, this material energy is also Kṛṣṇa. We think that we are sitting on this floor, but actually we are sitting on Kṛṣṇa. This is philosophy. So also see every being in me. Indeed, the self-realized man sees me everywhere. To see everything in relationship with Kṛṣṇa means seeing Kṛṣṇa everywhere. As it is taught in the Bhagavad Gita, Rasoham apsu kaunteya, I am the taste of water. The birds, beasts, and human beings, everyone drinks water. Therefore, water is needed so much. And Kṛṣṇa has stocked so much water for agriculture, for washing, for drinking. You see, if one does not get a glass of water in due time, he will die. One has that experience in war. How much valuable is water? The soldiers can understand while fighting. When they become thirsty and there is no water, they die. So if you have learned this philosophy, wherever you drink water, you will see Kṛṣṇa. And when you not drink water, this is Kṛṣṇa consciousness. Rasoham apsu anteya prabham si sashishur yayaho. I am the light and the sun and the moon. Wherever in the night or in the day you have to see either sunlight or moonlight. So how can you forget Kṛṣṇa? One has to see Kṛṣṇa in that way. Then you'll get the perfection of yoga. Kṛṣṇa promises, my dear Arjuna, my pure devotee is never lost to me. Don't be lost to Kṛṣṇa. That is the perfection of life. Simply don't be lost to Kṛṣṇa. You can forget all other things, but don't forget Kṛṣṇa. Then you are the richest. A Kṛṣṇa conscious person is a philosopher. If he studies what is this tree, he sees that the tree has a material body, just like he has a material body. But due to his past misdeeds, he has such an abominable body that he cannot even move. His body is material, and material means the material energy. And who is energy? Kṛṣṇa's energy. Therefore, the tree has connection with Kṛṣṇa, and the tree as a living entity is part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa. So in that way, if you discuss Kṛṣṇa conscious philosophy, you don't see the tree, you see Kṛṣṇa. That is Kṛṣṇa consciousness. You have to practice like that. That is yoga practice. That is samadhi. Studying the tree as Kṛṣṇa's energy as part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa. Why should you take account of the tree so nicely? Because you have love for Kṛṣṇa, just like you love your child. And if your child is away from your side, you find the child's shoes. Oh, these are my child's shoes. Do you love the shoes? No, you love the child. Similarly, as soon as we see the energy of Kṛṣṇa manifested in different ways, it means that we love an entity because we love Kṛṣṇa. Therefore, if you love Kṛṣṇa, your universal love is counted. Otherwise, it is nonsense. If you love Kṛṣṇa, then you have universal love. And if you don't love Kṛṣṇa, then you see, here is my American brother, and the cow is my food. And because you do not love the cow is an American, and my brother is American. My brother is good, the cow is food. Is this universal love? A Kṛṣṇa consciousness person sees, oh, here is a cow, here is a dog, here's a part and parcel of Kṛṣṇa. Somehow or another, he has a different body than mine. That does not mean he's not my brother. And so, how can I kill my brother? That is due to love for Kṛṣṇa. So, in controlling the mind, and we understand that Kṛṣṇa, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, is residing in our heart. And he's residing there. It's stated in the Purport how there are many different forms of Kṛṣṇa. And they're the same as that one Paramatma in our heart. So depending on whatever our Ishtadev is, whoever our Ishtadev is, it could be Nrsimha, it could be Vamana, it could be Rama. He's sitting in our heart, waiting for us to turn and surrender to him and make our desires one with him. Not that we're one in the merging with God. No, we're one in our desire to please him and one in our desire for whatever he desires, whatever he wants. That's where we're one. So thank you very much. Does anybody want to make a comment? Or yes, Prabhu. Hare Kṛṣṇa.
I heard some aspects of mind that you have explained. I just have heard. I do not know whether it is true or false that if a guru is concerned for his disciple, if he or she is within his aura, even if he or she is hidden or suppose disguised, the guru can realize or understand the disciple is around him. His mind can do it.
I'm having trouble understanding. So the guru is having understanding that what?
I'm just telling you right from the beginning again. You see, it happens that I heard it that if a guru is concerned for his disciple, if the disciple comes within his aura, his mind can detect even if he or she is hidden or around him.
Well, Śrīla Prabhupada definitely demonstrated that many times. There is a devotee who went to Hong Kong, very challenging in the early years. And she went with her husband, Jagatrini, and she was thinking, this is too hard. This service of trying to open a temple in Hong Kong is just too hard. I can't do this. I'm going to, as soon as I pay my obeisances, Prabhupada was coming, I'm going to pay my obeisances to Prabhupada, and then I'm going to tell him I can't do this anymore. So when Prabhupada came, she bowed down, and before she could even get up, Prabhupada leaned over, patted her on the back, and said, just give this one life to Kṛṣṇa. So Prabhupada, he gave her this sweet instruction, just this one life. You know, how many lives we've had. So, yes, as many times when Prabhupada could tell what the mentality, what the challenges were of his disciples, and he would be able to give instructions that were very helpful. So, yes.
So whatever I
I can't say completely because I don't know where it's quoted that in the scriptures, but I've had that experience in my own life with Śrīla Prabhupada. And that.
Isn't it unbelievable?
Is it unbelievable? No, not at all. I think it's very believable. Hare Krishna. Okay. Does anybody else want to say something? Yes, Prabhu.
You were saying that...
Wait for the mic because I don't hear well as it is anyway. Is it on? Okay, speak really loudly.
Okay.
Hare Krishna.
It's only a thought. You were talking about the desires that come as rivers coming to the ocean. And but many times it's not the desires. It's like I have to go to the doctor. I have to wash. I have to clean. I have to go to the grocery store. All the things we have to do during the day, right? Those are not desires. Those are things that we...
Those are duties. They're not necessarily desires. I mean, we don't really desire to go to the doctor, but it may have to come up. We have to go.
So, how we can avoid thinking of these things when we are chanting our japa?
Good question. Well, we want to have time for our japa, which is just japa time, because that's our connection with Kṛṣṇa. A real personal connection with Kṛṣṇa is during japa time. So we want to have special time for japa, not just japa all time. I mean, yes, we can chant Hare Krishna all the time. But the other thing is when we're going to the doctor, we have to take care of our health. Prabhupada actually stated in one list he made for the devotees that it was top in the list. First thing, take care of your health. Because we need this body to do devotional service. The body's not actually ours, as Lord Chaitanya told Sanatana Goswami. He says, this is my body. Sanatana Goswami was so distraught, he wanted to give up his material body. And Lord Chaitanya said, no, you can't do that, it's my body. So our bodies are not ours anymore. They're instruments in the hands of Kṛṣṇa. So we have to take care of them, though. Just as if we have a child, we can't just ignore the needs of the child. We have to care for the child and also just care for it so it can do its best in Kṛṣṇa consciousness. And that's our ultimate goal, is to be a very pleasing servant to the Supreme Personality of Godhead.
What I'm trying to say is not the specific thought about going to the doctor.
Right.
What I'm trying to say is that there's so many worries, things that need to be accomplished, and that's why it comes to our mind when we are trying to stop the mind.
Well, yes, and this is a point where we can really become dependent on Kṛṣṇa. Yes, you can make your list in the morning. I need to accomplish these things. If you wish, Kṛṣṇa, it's up to Kṛṣṇa if we accomplish them or not. And sometimes, we get so set in what we think should be done and how it should be done. We're like a train on rails. Vroom, and we try to rush ahead. But Kṛṣṇa may have a different plan. So that when that train gets derailed, when somebody comes in with another emergency or some other thing happens, that's when oh Kṛṣṇa, what do you want now? Because we're understanding we're not the controller. Kṛṣṇa's the controller.
So maybe stop worrying.
Exactly. And turn it over to Kṛṣṇa. Kṛṣṇa, these are the things I'd like to do for you today if you'd like me to accomplish them. And not worry about whether or not we're going to accomplish them. If we don't accomplish them today, then Kṛṣṇa, maybe you want me to do it tomorrow. Maybe there's something else. It's so, you hear these stories sometimes of people who were like supposed to get on a plane and then they didn't, and then the plane crashed, and they go, wow, I missed the plane and I felt so bad, but now I'm kind of glad. So that's kind of how it is. Kṛṣṇa has a special plan for us. And because we have a loud mind and there's so much gibberish going on, we're not hearing Kṛṣṇa's voice. And we will become much more peaceful, much more tranquil when we let go of the desire to control situations. Okay, Hare Krishna. All glories to Śrīla Prabhupada. Śrīla Bhagavad Gita ki jai.